The USB drive was smaller than my thumb and heavier than anything I had ever carried. It sat in the inside pocket of my suit jacket while 200 people clapped in a banquet hall outside Toledo, Ohio under strings of warm lights and fake ivy. The DJ had just lowered the music so my best man could stand up with a microphone and tell everybody how lucky I was. Darius was smiling when he said that. That was the first thing I remember clearly. Not Mara in her white dress, not the flowers, not my mother wiping her eyes with the same folded tissue she had been holding since the ceremony. I remember Darius smiling with his champagne glass lifted, like his hand had not been on my fiancée's waist in a hotel hallway 6 weeks earlier. I stood beside Mara at the head table with my left hand resting near my dinner plate. My wedding band was already on. It felt too tight, even though the jeweler had measured it twice. Darius leaned into the microphone. Nicholas is the kind of guy who checks the oil in your truck before he asks if you're okay. That's love, man. Practical love. And Mara, you got yourself one of the good ones. Don't mess it up. People laughed. Mara laughed too, soft and pretty, the way she did when she wanted older relatives to think she was shy. Her fingers found mine under the table. Her nails were cold. She squeezed once, a little warning or a little claim. I could not tell anymore. Across the room, the other 4 men raised their glasses with Darius. Cole by the bar, pretending he had not been avoiding my eyes all day. Evan near the gift table, his tie already loose. Matt at table 12 with his wife sitting beside him, looking tired and unaware. Tyler in the back, filming pieces of the speech on his phone like he had not helped create the thing I was about to show. 5 friends, not strangers, not some guy from an app. Men who had eaten ribs in my backyard, borrowed my tools, stood in my garage while snow melted off their boots. Men I had called when my father's furnace died. Men who had slapped my shoulder that morning and told me I looked nervous. I was nervous, just not for the reason they thought. The projector screen behind the DJ booth still showed the frozen title slide for our childhood photo montage. Nicholas and Mara, then a little heart, then forever starts here. Mara's cousin had made it in some wedding website template. There were baby pictures queued up, high school pictures, vacation shots, the kind of harmless sweetness people expect after cake. In my pocket was a different file, a clean timeline, screenshots, receipts, cropped hotel security stills. Audio from one voice memo Mara had forgotten was synced to our shared tablet. 5 names, 5 dates, 5 excuses, lined up so nobody could call it a misunderstanding. I had not slept more than 3 hours the night before. My mouth tasted like burned coffee and metal. Every time someone hugged me at the reception, the USB pressed against my ribs. Darius kept talking. He told a story about the first time he met me in 8th grade, when I punched a locker because I could not punch the kid who had shoved my little brother. He made it sound noble, protective, funny in a rough way. People laughed again. My brother Paul did not. He sat 2 tables back with his arms folded, watching me instead of Darius. Paul knew only one sentence of the truth. Last night outside the hotel, I had told him, if I leave during the reception, do not stop me. He had stared at me under the yellow entrance lights. Nick, what did she do? I could not answer then. If I had, I might have broken early. Now the room smelled like prime rib, hairspray, wet wool suits drying over chairbacks, and the vanilla icing from a cake I had paid for with overtime money. Rain ticked softly against the tall windows. The dance floor reflected gold light in patches, clean and empty, waiting for us to use it. Mara leaned close enough that her veil brushed my cheek. You're pale, she whispered. I looked at her, up close. She was still beautiful in the specific ways that had ruined me. The small freckle near her left eye, the careful lipstick, the little crease between her eyebrows when she needed something from me. Long day, I told her. She smiled for the room, but her fingers tightened around mine. After the slideshow, we can breathe. Just get through this part. Get through this part, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because for 3 months I had been getting through parts, cake tasting, suit fitting, final venue payment, her hand on my chest in bed while her phone lit up face down on the nightstand. Darius asking if I needed help moving chairs. Cole dropping off beer for the bachelor weekend. Matt texting me a prayer the morning of the wedding. The DJ caught my eye from behind his table and pointed at the laptop. His eyebrows lifted, asking if we were ready for the montage. Mara nodded before I did. My hand moved to the inside of my jacket. The room was still smiling. That was what the thumbnail would never show if this were a picture. It would show shock, maybe Mara crying, maybe me standing there like stone. But the worst second was before any of that. The last second when everyone still believed the lie was a celebration. Darius lifted his glass higher. To Nicholas and Mara, he called out, proof that good things happen to good people. Chairs scraped as people stood. I felt the USB between my fingers. Then I stepped away from the head table and walked toward the DJ. 3 months earlier, I was in our garage on a Thursday night, replacing the rollers on the old side door because Mara wanted it fixed before her bridal shower. The house was not impressive. 1 story, narrow driveway, maple tree, too close to the sewer line. But it was ours in the way a place becomes yours when you have bled into small repairs. I had patched the kitchen ceiling after a winter leak. I had laid cheap vinyl plank through the hallway because the carpet smelled like the old owner's dogs. Mara had painted the front door dark green and stood on the porch with paint on her elbow, grinning like we had just bought a lake house. I loved that version of us. Maybe I loved it so much I kept protecting it after it was gone. That night, rain tapped against the garage roof. The Browns game played low on a radio near my toolbox. I had grease under my thumbnail and a half-finished beer warming on the washing machine. Mara came through the kitchen door wearing leggings and one of my old hoodies. You are going to be out here until midnight, she told me. Door's got opinions. She smiled, but it did not stay. Her phone was in her hand, screen tucked against her palm. Back then, I still noticed things and filed them under normal. Wedding stress, work stress, her mother calling too much, my own hours making me suspicious because I was tired. Darius texted you, she said. I looked over my shoulder. No, about what? Bachelor weekend stuff, I think. Your phone's on the counter. Her voice had the casual lift people use when they are stepping around broken glass they hope you do not see. I wiped my hand on a rag and went inside. My phone sat by the sink, but the notification on top was not from Darius. It was from a hotel rewards app linked to the email Mara and I used for wedding planning. Thanks for your stay, Mara. One night, King Room, downtown Cleveland. I stared at it long enough for the screen to dim. Mara reached past me and picked up a mailer from the counter. Her shoulder brushed mine. What? I turned the phone slightly. You stayed in Cleveland? A normal person might have sounded confused. Mara sounded ready. For Jenna's vendor thing, she answered. Remember? The bridal expo? We talked about this. We had talked about a bridal expo in Columbus. During the day, I looked at the date. Tuesday, 2 weeks earlier. I'd been on a rooftop unit in Sandusky until almost 10 that night. My hands numb from Wynn, texting her apologies because I missed dinner with her parents. I thought that was Columbus. She laughed once, not mean, just quick. No, babe, Cleveland. You were exhausted that week. You probably mixed it up. That was possible. That was the hook she put it on, and I helped her hang it there. I worked 55 to 60 hours most weeks. I forgot oil changes, birthdays, where I left my tape measure. I wanted to be the steady man, not the jealous one digging through calendar entries because a hotel app sent a receipt. So I nodded. Yeah, I said, maybe. She came closer and put both arms around my waist. Her cheek pressed into my chest, right over the old logo on my work shirt. We are almost there, she whispered. Can we not make every little thing heavy right now? That sentence worked on me because I was proud. I had spent most of my adult life trying not to be the kind of man who made a woman pay for another woman's sins. My father had done that after my mother left him for 6 months when I was a kid. He questioned receipts, mileage, perfume, every laugh she had on the phone. Even after she came back, he made the house feel like a courtroom. I promised myself I would never live like that, so I went back to the garage. Mara stayed in the kitchen, talking softly on the phone while water ran in the sink. I heard my name once. Then the door clicked shut between us. I tightened the last roller too hard and stripped the screw. That was how the first crack looked. Not lipstick on a collar, not a message flashing on a lock screen, just a hotel notification, a clean explanation, and me choosing the version of myself I wanted to be over the warning sitting in my gut. 2 days later, Darius came over to help move folding tables into the basement for the shower. He brought a six-pack and a grin, like always. "Man," he said, stepping around the garage door, "you finally fixed this thing?" "Mostly." He lifted it, smooth as anything. "Look at you. Husband material." Mara laughed from the kitchen. I remember that sound, crossing the room and landing wrong. Darius looked toward her before I did. Not long, not enough for anyone else to catch. But his face changed for half a second. It was not desire exactly, it was familiarity. I picked up the folding table and told myself to stop being my father. I lasted 9 days before I checked the tablet. That is the part I am least proud of, because I did not do it like a calm man with a plan. I did it at 1 a.m. in my work pants, sitting at the kitchen table with one boot still on, after Mara fell asleep upstairs with her phone under her pillow. The shared tablet was supposed to be for wedding planning. Venue emails, seating chart, registry, song list. It lived in the drawer beside the fridge, under a stack of takeout menus and appliance manuals. We both used it. That was how I justified touching it. The real reason was simpler. I had watched Darius and Mara in the kitchen during the shower. Nothing obvious, no hand on her back, no whispered joke, just the way they kept not looking at each other too carefully. A man can talk himself out of one strange thing, two strange things start talking back. The tablet battery was at 17%. I plugged it in, sat down, and opened the email app first. My hand shook once when the screen lit up. I hated that. It made me feel like I had already lost before I knew anything. The hotel receipt was there, archived but not deleted. Downtown Cleveland. Tuesday night. 1 king room. Paid with Mara's card, but the rewards account had used our shared email because I had booked a weekend trip for us the year before and never changed the login. I clicked details. 2 guests. For a minute, the kitchen went very quiet except for the refrigerator knocking in the wall. I could hear rain dripping from the gutter outside the back door. One of my boots left a crescent of mud on the linoleum. I opened photos next, expecting nothing, hoping for nothing. The tablet had little gray thumbnails from Mara's phone, mostly wedding screenshots, dress fittings, pictures of centerpieces, her niece holding flowers. Then I saw a hotel mirror. Not a full picture, just a thumbnail from a deleted folder that had synced before it vanished from her phone. Mara's hand holding the phone. A dark sleeve at the edge of the frame. A watch I recognized because I had given it to Darius after he got promoted at the warehouse. Black face, brown leather strap. Little scratch near the crown from when he dropped it on my garage floor. I did not throw the tablet. I did not yell. I sat there with both hands flat on the table, like I was waiting for a supervisor to tell me the next step. My first thought was not even Mara. It was that watch. I had bought it from a pawn shop in Perrysburg because Darius had been broke after his divorce and trying to act like he did not care about anything. I cleaned it with a toothbrush before I wrapped it. He hugged me too hard when he opened it. Now it was a little piece of leather in the corner of my fiancée's hotel photo. The messages were harder to find. Mara was careful with texts, but the tablet kept app previews in a way she must not have understood. I found fragments through search. Cleveland, Tuesday, don't park out front. Nick is in Sandusky. Stop saying my name in voicemails. Darius had sent one that read, "You sure you can go through with the wedding after this?" Mara's answer was not romantic. That made it worse. I have to. It's already paid for and he is stable. Please don't start. Stable. That word sat there like a tool dropped on concrete. I opened the voice memos because I needed to punish myself, I guess. There were dozens from wedding vendors, sample songs, Mara practicing vows in the car. Then one file had no title, just a date. Her voice came through first, low and irritated. "You cannot keep acting weird around him. He notices everything when he is tired." Darius laughed under his breath. "Then stop inviting me over. He is your friend. It would look worse if I didn't." The audio crackled. Fabric moved near the phone. Then Darius, closer. "You love him?" A pause. "I love what my life is with him." I hit stop so hard my fingernail clicked against the glass. Upstairs, the floor creaked. I froze, waiting for Mara to call my name. Nothing happened. The house settled back into itself. I went to the garage and found an old USB drive in the top drawer of my toolbox, the one with HVAC manuals and warranty photos from jobs. It was blue plastic with the company logo half rubbed off. I copied the receipt, the photo thumbnail, the message fragments, and the voice memo onto it. My hands worked better once there was a task. Create folder, name files by date, backup to drive, eject properly, small steps, clean steps. At 3:15, I stood in the garage with the USB in my palm and the overhead light buzzing above me. I should have confronted her then. Maybe a braver man would have walked upstairs, turned on the bedroom light, and asked one question. I did not. I put the USB behind the socket set, washed the mud off the kitchen floor, and slept on the far edge of our bed without touching her. The worst discoveries did not come all at once. They came in pieces small enough that I kept thinking I had reached the bottom. Then another floor gave way. For 2 weeks, I acted normal because I did not know what else to do. I got up at 5:30, packed my lunch, kissed Mara on the forehead if she was awake, and drove my service truck through the gray Ohio mornings with the USB in the locked console. I repaired rooftop units above strip malls and restaurants. I stood in mechanical rooms, sweating through my shirt while my phone buzzed with wedding reminders. Final head count due Friday. Tux pickup next week. Ask Darius if he has speech ready. That one almost made me laugh in front of a store manager whose freezer had died. At night, I checked the tablet after Mara slept. Not every night. I told myself that made it better. I made rules like a man pretending he was not already in the dirt. No checking her live location. No touching her phone. Only the shared tablet. Only files that had already synced. Only enough to understand what I was dealing with. Those rules lasted until I found Cole. It was a calendar screenshot, deleted from her photos but still sitting in a recently synced folder. A cropped view of a Thursday in August. Dentist 3 p.m. written in Mara's neat blue text. Under it, smaller, after gym. Cole ran the gym where I had trained on and off for years. He had been the one pushing me to get in shape before the wedding. You want to look sharp in those pictures, he used to tell me, smacking my shoulder. Mara deserves a man with some discipline. I found a message preview from the same day. Back door after 9. Cameras don't hit the office hall. I sat back from the table and looked through the doorway at the basement stairs. Down there were boxes of wedding favors Mara's bridesmaids had tied with little navy ribbons. My name and hers printed together on tiny tags. I had punched holes in 200 of them while watching a baseball game with Cole drinking beer on my couch. After Cole came Evan. Evan was not even smooth. He was a mortgage broker with hair plugs and a leased Mercedes, the kind of guy who turned every dinner into a story about interest rates. I found him through a hotel receipt outside Columbus, then a selfie Mara had taken in sunglasses I did not recognize. In the reflection of a car window, Evan's watch flashed bright enough to catch. Matt came through a voice message. That one hurt differently because Matt had a wife, 2 kids, and a habit of ending every text with "praying for you, brother." His message was panicked, not romantic. Mara, delete this after you hear it. I can't keep doing this if you are really marrying him. Beth asked why you were calling me. I told her it was about the reception seating, but this is getting stupid. Then Tyler. Tyler was the youngest of us, always around, always needing something. Help moving, money until Friday, a ride when his car died. I had let him stay in our spare room for 6 weeks after his landlord sold the duplex. The proof with him was a picture from our own hallway mirror. Mara had cropped it badly. Tyler's belt was visible on the floor beside the bathroom door. My work boots were in the bottom of the frame, where I had left them before driving overnight to Fort Wayne for an emergency call. I went outside after that and threw up behind the garage. The night air smelled like wet leaves and gasoline from the mower can. I stood bent over with one hand on the siding, trying to breathe quietly so Mara would not hear me through the bedroom window. 5 men, not one mistake, not a lonely panic before marriage, not cold feet turning ugly. 5 different betrayals braided through cookouts, gym sessions, group texts, church fish fries, and Sunday football. They had walked through my house carrying beer and secrets. They had looked at my mother. They had eaten food Mara made in the kitchen where she lied to me. My first real impulse was not controlled at all. I wanted to drive to Darius's apartment and put his head through the drywall. I wanted to wake Cole's wife, Matt's wife, every mother, every brother, every person who thought these men were decent. I wanted noise because the quiet in my house felt like it was choking me. Instead, I sat in my truck until dawn with the keys in my hand. Pride stopped me before wisdom did. I knew if I exploded, they would get the version of me they could use. Nicholas lost it. Nicholas got aggressive. Nicholas must have been hard to live with. Maybe Mara had reasons. By sunrise, I had made another folder on the USB. Timeline. I did not make it fancy. Date, person, source, file name, screenshot, receipt, audio. The kind of documentation I used at work when a customer claimed a unit had failed because of something we did. You show the service history, you show the readings, you show the part that burned before you touched it. Only this was my life, and I was reducing it to evidence because evidence was easier to hold than grief. When Mara came into the kitchen that morning, I was frying eggs I could not eat. She kissed my shoulder. "You okay?" The spatula scraped the pan. "Yeah," I answered, "just tired." She opened the cabinet for coffee mugs. On her left hand, the engagement ring caught the early light. For 1 second, I hated her so cleanly it scared me. Then she turned and smiled like we were still choosing first dance songs, and the hate cracked into something worse. I still loved her. That was the part that made me dangerous to myself. The group chat was not on Mara's tablet. It came from Tyler because Tyler was careless when he was scared. By then, the wedding was 18 days away. The final venue payment had cleared. My mother had already taken her dress to be hemmed. Mara had little white boxes of place cards spread across the dining room table, each one folded like a tiny roof over names of people who trusted us. I had stopped sleeping like a normal person. I would lie beside Mara with my back to her, wait for her breathing to settle, then go downstairs and work on the timeline until my eyes burned. At work, I made stupid mistakes I never made. Left a gauge manifold on a roof, forgot to tighten a panel screw. My foreman, Rich, pulled me aside after I snapped at an apprentice. "Whatever's eating you," he told me, "do not bring it onto a ladder." I nodded because he was right. That afternoon, Tyler called while I was parked behind a grocery store waiting for a compressor to cool. "Nick, you busy?" His voice had that thin edge he got when rent was due. "Working." Yeah, I just wanted to check on Bachelor Weekend. Darius is being weird about the cabin deposit." "What kind of weird?" A pause. Wind pushed a plastic bag across the loading dock. "Nothing, forget it." I should have let it go. Instead, I leaned back in the truck seat and watched the service ticket on my clipboard curl in the heat. "Tyler," he exhaled into the phone. "Are you mad at me?" There it was, not repeated, just sitting between us. "Should I be?" He gave a nervous laugh. "Man, what? No, I just mean you have been quiet. Everybody says you have been quiet." Everybody. I kept my voice level. Who is everybody? The guys, Darius, Cole, them. We have a chat, just stupid wedding stuff. My hand tightened around the phone. "Add me." "What?" "If it is wedding stuff, add me." Tyler stumbled through 3 excuses in 20 seconds. Old chat, mostly jokes. Darius made it, not worth it. Then he said he had to go and hung up. An hour later, he accidentally sent me a screenshot. I know it was accidental because he deleted it almost immediately and followed with wrong, "Nick, my bad." But the image had already loaded on my phone. 6 names at the top. Darius, Cole, Evan, Matt, Tyler, Mara. The visible part of the chat showed Tyler asking, "Does Nick know anything or is he just being Nick?" Cole had answered, "He's a furnace guy, not FBI." Darius wrote, "He won't blow it up before the wedding. Too much money in. Too proud." Then Mara, "Do not underestimate how quiet he gets when he is angry." Under that, Matt had sent, "If he starts acting crazy, we say he has been paranoid for months." Mara, you have texts where he questions you, right? I sat in the truck with the engine off until the chem grew hot enough that sweat ran down my ribs. The betrayal changed shape. Until then, I had thought of it as dirty and selfish, but still scattered. Mara with Darius, Mara with Cole. each man taking what he wanted and hiding from consequence. The chat made it organized. They had discussed me, measured me, planned around my pride. They knew the wedding money mattered because I had complained about overtime. They knew I did not want to become my father. They knew I hated public drama. They had turned my best traits into straps. That screenshot was the midpoint, though I did not have that word for it then. It changed what I could do. If I confronted Mara privately, she would cry first. Then she would apologize just enough to pull me close. If that failed, she would bring up my mood, my work hours, my temper when tired. The men would back her in pieces, not with big lies, with small, reasonable ones. Nick has been off lately. He checks things. He has been angry. He is under pressure. A man does not need to be destroyed all at once. Sometimes people just tilt the room until everyone thinks he is the one standing crooked. I drove home with the screenshot saved in 3 places. Mara was in the dining room tying ribbon around a stack of ceremony programs. The house smelled like chicken soup from a slow cooker she had started before work. For a second, seeing her there in sweatpants with her hair clipped up, I felt the old pull toward ordinary life so strongly I had to hold the doorframe. She looked up. "You're home early. Job got pushed." "Good. Can you help me with these? My fingers are cramping." I sat across from her and tied navy ribbon around programs that had our names printed in silver. Nicholas Hart and Mara Ellison invite you to witness their vows. Her knee bumped mine under the table. Once that would have felt like comfort. "Darius is stressing about his speech," she murmured. I pulled the ribbon too tight and spent the paper. "He should keep it short." She studied my face. "You two okay?" I looked at her then. I wanted to ask if she had practiced concern in the mirror. Instead, I smoothed the damaged program with my palm. "Why wouldn't we be?" Her eyes held mine 1 second too long. She was good, but fear made her slightly less good. That night, I took the USB from behind the socket set and bought a new one from a drugstore 2 towns over. Metal casing, 32 gigabytes, the kind with no logo. At my kitchen table, I copied everything again. Then I made the file that would play at the wedding if I decided to use it. Not porn, not private bodies. I was angry, but I was not going to become filthy because they had been filthy. Dates, names, messages, receipts, audio clips, the screenshot of the chat, enough truth to remove the ground under every smile. When it finished exporting, the file name blinked on the screen. Forever starts here.mp4. For the first time in weeks, I laughed. It came out once, rough and empty, and then I put my face in my hands until the house stopped moving. The rehearsal dinner was held in a private room at an Italian place near Malmi, the kind with framed black and white photos of someone's grandparents on the wall and red sauce that tasted better than the wedding food. By then, I knew enough to leave. I also knew leaving quietly would let them write the first version of the story. That is an ugly thing to admit. A cleaner man would say he only cared about truth. I cared about truth, but I also cared about not being made into a fool twice. They had already taken my trust. I was not going to hand them my reputation because I wanted to look mature. Mara sat beside me in a cream dress with little pearl buttons at the wrists. Under the table, her heel touched my shoe. Across from us, Darius told her father a story about helping me replace brake pads in February. Cole ordered bourbon he did not pay for. Evan kept checking his reflection in the dark window. Matt held his wife's hand like a man trying to pass a test no one had announced. Tyler barely ate. I watched all 5 of them perform friendship in the warm light. Mara's father, Tom, stood near the end of dinner and tapped a spoon against his water glass. Tom was a retired postal worker with thick hands and a soft spot for people who showed up on time. He had treated me well from the beginning. When I asked his blessing, he took me into his garage, handed me a beer, and made me promise I would never make Mara feel like she had to beg for steadiness. She grew up around men who left rooms when things got hard, he had told me. Do not be that guy. At the rehearsal dinner, he lifted a small box from his jacket pocket. "Nick," he said, and his voice already had trouble in it, "I know tomorrow is about both of you, but tonight I want to say something to the man joining our family." My throat tightened. Mara smiled at me. She was glowing. That is the word people would use. Glowing, it made me feel like I was watching a stage light burn over rotten floorboards. Tom opened the box. Inside was a watch with a plain silver face and a brown leather band. "This was my father's," he said. "Not worth much to anybody else. Worth plenty to me. He wore it every day he carried mail until his knees quit. I want you to have it. You are the kind of man who understands showing up." The room made a soft sound, the kind people make when decency appears in public. I stood because I had to. Tom hugged me hard. The watch box pressed between our chests. Over his shoulder, I saw Darius looking down at his plate. That was the moment my composure almost broke. Not when I found the hotel receipt. Not when I heard Mara's voice on the memo. It was Tom giving me his father's watch because he believed he was gaining a son. I wanted to tell him right there. I wanted to put the USB on the table beside the breadbasket and say, "Watch this before you waste any more love." But Mara's mother was crying into a napkin. Matt's wife was smiling at her kids as they colored on the paper menu. My own mother sat near the end with Paul, proud and tired and wearing earrings she had bought special for the weekend. Truth has blast radius. People talk like honesty is clean because they have never held it when it was loaded. I thanked Tom. My voice sounded normal enough. After dinner, while people drifted toward the parking lot under umbrellas, Tom caught me by the entrance. "You all right?" he asked. I looked past him at Mara standing under the awning between Cole and her cousin, laughing at something I could not hear. "Long week," Tom nodded. "Marriage starts before the wedding, son. All this pressure, money, family nonsense, it squeezes you. But tomorrow you look her in the eye and mean what you say. That is the part that counts." I almost handed him the USB. Instead, I shook his hand with the watch box still in my palm. At home, Mara went upstairs to finish packing her overnight bag for the bridal suite. I stood in the kitchen and opened my laptop. I made one folder for Tom. Not everything. Enough. The group chat screenshot, the hotel receipt, the voice memo with Mara saying she loved what her life was with me, a text from Darius about the wedding being too expensive to cancel. Then I wrote a note. "Tom, if tomorrow I cannot say what needs to be said, open this. I am sorry for the pain this brings into your family. I did not create it, but I know showing it will hurt innocent people too. Nicholas." I printed the note, put it in a second USB drive into a small, padded envelope, and drove to his house at 11:42 at night. The neighborhood was wet and quiet, basketball hoop in the driveway, porch flag moving in the wind. I almost turned around twice. Tom opened the door in sweatpants and a University of Toledo sweatshirt. "Nick," I handed him the envelope. "Do not open it unless I ask you to, or unless tomorrow goes wrong." His face changed slowly. "What is this?" "Insurance." "Against what?" The porch light buzzed above us. Rainwater dripped from the gutter into a flower bed. I could have told him. I owed him that. But if I spoke one full sentence, I knew I would not make it through the next day. "Please," I said, "just hold it." Tom looked at the envelope, then at me. For a second, I thought he might refuse. Instead, he tucked it under his arm. "Does Mara know you are here?" "No," he nodded once, like a man accepting a package he did not want. Driving home, I wore his father's watch on my wrist. It ticked quietly against the steering wheel. I hated that I had taken it. I hated more that I was going to earn it in the ugliest way possible. I woke up on my wedding day before the alarm. For a few seconds, I did not know where I was. Hotel room, beige curtains, the smell of stale air conditioning and coffee from the little machine by the bathroom. My suit hung from the closet door in a black garment bag. Paul's dress shoes were lined up by the wall because he had stayed with me to make sure I got there on time. He was asleep in the other bed, one arm over his face. My phone showed 5:23 in the morning. Rain tapped the window, steady and cold. The USB was on the nightstand beside Tom's watch. I had taken it out of my jacket pocket before bed because I kept checking to see if it was still there. That was how far gone I was. A grown man, afraid a piece of metal would walk away while he slept. I showered so hot my skin went red. I shaved carefully. I put on the white shirt, the cufflinks Mara had bought me, the charcoal suit my mother said made me look like my grandfather in his Navy pictures. Every normal wedding movement felt borrowed from another man's life. Paul woke while I was tying my tie. He watched me in the mirror. You look like you are going to court. Feels close. He sat up. Nick. I pulled the knot too tight, loosened it, started again. If I tell you right now, I said, you will either try to stop me or help me. I cannot handle either before breakfast. My brother swung his feet to the floor. He was younger by 3 years, bigger by 20 pounds, and still somehow looked like the kid I used to pull behind me on a sled. Is she safe? That question cut through everything. Yes, nobody is in danger. Are you? I looked at him through the mirror, not physically. He nodded once, jaw moving. Then I will stand where you tell me. I almost lost it then too. Not dramatic, just a sudden pressure behind my eyes, hot and embarrassing. I turned toward the window until it passed. The morning became a machine after that. Breakfast in the lobby with men pretending powdered eggs were food. Darius slapped my back so hard, coffee jumped in my cup. Big day, he said. I looked at his watch. The one I had bought him was not on his wrist. He wore a different one, silver, cleaner. You nervous? Cole asked, grinning over a paper plate stacked with bacon. Enough. Evan filmed a short video of us raising coffee cups. Matt bowed his head before eating and murmured something that sounded like grace. Tyler kept glancing at me, then away. At the venue, the bridal party moved through hallways smelling like carpet cleaner and lilies. Photographers arranged us under a covered walkway because the rain had ruined the outdoor plan. Mara and I did not see each other before the ceremony. She had insisted on that tradition. Bad luck, she had told me weeks earlier. By noon, my suit felt too warm. The USB was back in my inside pocket. Tom's watch sat on my wrist, ticking against my pulse. Before the ceremony, Mara sent me a note through her maid of honor. It was folded once, my name written in her careful script. Nick, in a few minutes I get to marry the safest place I have ever known. Thank you for choosing me even when I am difficult. I promise to choose you every day after this. I read it in a side room with folding chairs stacked against the wall and a mop bucket in the corner. Safest place. That was what I had been to her. Not love exactly, shelter, mortgage, respectable man, clean future. I folded the note and put it in my pocket with the USB. For a moment, paper and metal touched. The ceremony room filled slowly. I stood at the front with Darius beside me. He smelled like mint gum and expensive cologne. My mother sat in the first row, gripping Paul's hand. Tom walked Mara down the aisle. She looked beautiful enough to make people forgive what they did not know. That sentence is not fair, maybe. Beauty does not excuse anything. But in that room with the music soft and everyone standing, I understood how lies survive. They dress well, they arrive with flowers. They make old women cry ma. Mara reached me and Tom placed her hand in mine. His eyes searched my face. He had not opened the envelope, I could tell. He still looked confused, worried, hopeful. The officiant began. I heard maybe half of it. Marriage, patience, trust, covenant. Words people say under chandeliers because nobody can bear to admit how much of life depends on what happens after the room empties. When Mara read her vows, her voice trembled. Nicholas, you have taught me what steady love feels like. You do not run when things get hard. You fix what is broken. You make me want to be better. My thumb moved over her knuckles. I do not know why. Habit, maybe? Or the last reflex of a man still trying to comfort someone who had set him on fire. Behind her, I saw my mother crying. That nearly ended the plan. I thought of walking out then, quietly. No USB, no reception. Just remove my hand from Mara's, tell the officiant I could not continue, and leave the rest for lawyers and rumors. Then Darius shifted beside me. A small movement, nothing anyone else would notice. But Mara's eyes flicked to him for less than a second, at the altar, while she was holding my hands. Something in me went still. When it was my turn, I looked at the paper where my vows were printed. I had written them before I knew. They talked about building, patience, choosing each other on ordinary mornings. I folded the paper once. Then I spoke only the part I could still say honestly. I came here ready for the truth to matter. The officiant smiled, thinking it was nerves. Mara's fingers tightened. The ceremony moved on. Rings, pronouncement, applause. When Mara kissed me, people cheered. I kept my eyes open. By the time Darius finished his toast, my body had become simple. Walk to the DJ, hand him the drive. Do not look back too soon. The applause for his speech faded behind me as I crossed the dance floor. The DJ was a guy named Spencer with a trimmed beard and a black shirt stretched tight over his stomach. We had met twice. He knew me as the groom who paid the deposit on time and requested no line dances. He leaned toward me. You want the montage now? I set the USB on his table. Use this file instead. Forever starts here. He glanced at the screen. Your cousin gave me one already. This is the updated one. Something in my voice made him stop arguing. He plugged it in. Mara appeared beside me so fast I wondered if she had floated. What are you doing? Her smile stayed for the room, but her eyes had gone sharp. Updating the slideshow. Nick. Just my name. Quiet. A warning dressed like a plea. I looked at her then. Go sit down. Her face changed, not enough for guests to read, but enough for me. She knew. Maybe not what I had, maybe not how much, but she knew the life she had arranged was no longer obeying her. Spencer clicked the file. The projector went black. For 2 seconds, the room made happy reception noise. Forks on plates, someone laughing near the bar, a child complaining about shoes, rain tapping the windows. Then the screen lit up, not with baby pictures. A white background appeared with black text. This timeline is being shown because private truth was turned into a public lie. No music. I had removed the music. Silence made people pay attention faster. The first slide showed the Cleveland hotel receipt. Date. King room. 2 guests, Mara's name. Then the cropped mirror thumbnail, enlarged just enough to show Darius's watch without showing bodies. I had drawn a small circle around the scratch near the crown. Darius stood halfway from his chair. Nick, he called, but his voice cracked. The next slide played 10 seconds of audio. Mara's voice came through the speakers, low and irritated. You cannot keep acting weird around him. He notices everything when he is tired. A ripple went through the room, not screaming, worse. Chairs shifting, breaths catching, Tom's hand landing flat on his table. Mara grabbed my arm. Stop it. I removed her hand. Not hard, enough. The screen moved to Cole. Gym office message, calendar screenshot, backdoor after 9. Camera map I had pulled from their own public security notices because Cole was dumb enough to brag online about his new system. Cole said, that is not what it looks like. His wife was not there, lucky for him, or unlucky depending on how long truth takes to travel. Evan's slide came next, Columbus Hotel, car reflection, his name from a booking confirmation Mara had forwarded to herself and deleted too late. Evan actually laughed. This is insane, he announced, looking around for agreement. This is edited. He edited all of this. Nobody answered him. Matt's voice message filled the hall. Mara, delete this after you hear it. I can't keep doing this if you are really marrying him. Matt's wife, Beth, turned toward him slowly. They had been married 11 years. She did not cry. She looked at him like he had become a stranger wearing her husband's suit. Beth, he whispered. She moved her chair back from him. Tyler was last before the group chat. His hallway mirror photo stayed on the screen only 3 seconds. Long enough. My work boots at the bottom of the frame made my stomach twist harder than any bedroom image could have. Then came the screenshot. 6 names. Tyler. Does Nick know anything or is he just being Nick? Coley. He's a furnace guy, not FBI. Darius. He won't blow it up before the wedding. Too much money in, too proud. Matt. If he starts acting crazy, we say he has been paranoid for months. Mara. Do not underestimate how quiet he gets when he is angry. The room went dead. That was the shock. Not loud, not cinematic. The sound left the space like someone had opened a drain under the floor. Mara stopped pulling at me. Her mouth was open a little. She looked at the screen, then at the tables, then at her father. Dad, she said. Tom did not move. The final slide was 1 sentence. The wedding is over. I took the microphone from Spencer's table. My hand was steady. That surprised me. I did not show private images, I told the room. I did not show everything I have. I showed enough because Every person here was asked to witness a vow that was already broken. I am sorry to the people who came here honestly. I am sorry to the families. I am not sorry for refusing to stand inside a lie. Mara began crying then, but not like grief, like panic looking for a shape. Nicholas, please, she said, reaching for me. We can talk. You did not have to do this here. I looked at the 5 men. Darius had both hands on the back of a chair. Cole stared at the floor. Evan was still shaking his head, but no sound came out. Matt followed Beth as she walked toward the lobby. Tyler looked 17 years old and sick. You all chose here, I said. Every time you put on a suit, every time you smiled at my mother, every time you let me pay another invoice. You chose this room. No one clapped. I am glad they did not. Applause would have made it cheap. Paul appeared at my right shoulder. You ready? He asked. I looked once at the head table, our plates, her bouquet, 2 champagne glasses, one with lipstick on the rim. Then Tom stood. He did not come to me. He did not go to Mara. He walked to the projector table, picked up the USB drive after Spencer removed it, and held it in his fist like something hot. Everyone stay seated, Tom said, voice rough. Let him leave first. And for the first time all day, the room obeyed the right man. The hallway outside the banquet room smelled like wet coats and floor wax. That is where the wedding became real again. Not on the screen, not in the gasps, in the narrow hall with a stack of booster seats against one wall and a bartender pretending not to listen. Paul walked beside me without touching my arm. He knew better. If he had put a hand on my shoulder right then, I might have folded in half. Behind us, the banquet room stayed quiet for maybe 10 seconds. Then sound returned in pieces. A chair scraping hard. Mara's mother crying. Evan saying something too loud. Beth's voice cutting through everyone with one word I could not make out. I reached the coat room before Mara caught up. She had lifted the front of her dress in both hands. Her veil had slipped sideways, and one of the pearl pins hung near her ear. Seeing her like that, wrecked but still beautiful, did something cruel to my chest. Nicholas, wait. Paul stepped forward. It's okay, I told him. He did not move far, just enough to give us the corner. Mara looked back toward the reception doors, then at me. Tears tracked through her makeup. You don't understand what you just did. That was her first sentence to me as my wife. I almost smiled, but it would have been an ugly thing. I understand it pretty well. My mother is in there, my nieces, my co-workers. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You invited them. Her mouth tightened. For a second, the panic dropped, and I saw anger underneath it, bright and practical. So this is who you are? You planned this? You stood there and married me just to punish me? The question landed because part of it was true. I had not married her in my heart, but I had gone through the ceremony. I had let people watch. I had made the room bigger before I broke it. That cost stayed with me later. I stood there, I said, because the lie was already public. We could have handled this privately. With Darius helping? Or Matt? Or the group chat where you planned to call me unstable? She flinched at that. Near the lobby doors, Darius appeared. His tie was loose and his face had gone gray. Paul shifted his weight, ready. Darius raised both hands. Nick, man, listen. That chat was stupid. It was jokes. You know how guys talk. I looked at him over Mara's shoulder. Do not come closer. He stopped. You are blowing up a lot of lives, he said. That one almost got me. Not because he was right, but because he said it like a man warning me away from damage he had caused. Mara turned on him. Shut up, Darius. The way she said his name told me more than another slide could have. Not fear, not surprise. History. Tom came through the doors, holding the USB and the padded envelope I had given him. He had opened it. I could see the torn edge. His face looked older than it had an hour before. Mara, he said. She covered her mouth. Dad, please. He looked at her for a long time. Then he looked at me. I am sorry, he said. Those 3 words did what the reveal had not. They made my eyes burn. I nodded once because I did not trust my voice. Mara reaching for him. Dad, I made mistakes. I know that, but he just destroyed me. Tom's jaw worked. No, he said. He showed us. There is a difference. Darius muttered something under his breath. Paul took one step toward him. Try another word. That was enough. Darius backed away toward the lobby, hands up again, weaker this time. A venue manager came down the hall with a clipboard pressed to her chest. Poor woman. She looked like she had trained for drunk uncles and missing centerpieces. Not this. Mr. Hart, she said carefully, do you want us to stop service? I looked at the reception doors. Behind them were people who had bought gifts, booked hotel rooms, dressed children, driven through rain. The food was paid for. The cake was cut. Let them eat, I said. I am leaving. Mara stared at me. That's it? I took off the ring. It did not slide easily. My finger had swollen from heat or stress, or maybe my body refusing theater. I twisted it once, twice, until it came free and left a red band in the skin. I placed it on the little shelf beside the coat check bell. That's it. She looked smaller then, not innocent, just smaller. The whole dress, the makeup, the room behind her, all of it suddenly too much for one person to stand inside. For a second, I wanted to comfort her. That was the last humiliating reflex love took from me that day. I picked up my overcoat. Paul opened the outer door, and cold rain blew across the lobby tile. Tom called my name. When I turned, he held out his father's watch. I shook my head. I can't keep that. He swallowed. You showed up, he said. Not the way any of us wanted, but you did. I could not take it. I just could not. So I walked out with rain hitting my face, my left hand bare, and the sound of my own wedding continuing behind me without me. For the first week after the wedding, everybody wanted the clean version. Mara wanted me to say I had acted out of shock. Her mother wanted me to apologize for the room, if not the reason. Two of the groomsmen who had not been involved wanted to meet for beers and talk like men, which meant they wanted to ask questions without feeling nosy. My mother wanted me to come stay with her because she could not stand the thought of me in that house. I did not stay in the house. I packed 2 duffel bags the morning after the wedding while Paul stood in the driveway drinking gas station coffee. Mara was at her parents' place. The house looked staged for people who would never arrive. Wrapped gifts in the spare room, her makeup bag still open on the bathroom counter, programs in a box by the front door, a strip of navy ribbon stuck to my sock. I took my tools, work clothes, my father's old tackle box, and the framed photo of my mother and Paul from a Cedar Point trip when we were kids. I left the wedding gifts. The divorce was paperwork and money and small humiliations. Because we had signed the license and gone through the ceremony, it was not as simple as walking away from an engagement. People think truth makes systems move faster. It does not. Truth still has office hours. The venue kept most of the money. The photographer sent a gallery link I never opened. The cake baker mailed a final balance notice for extra servings no one remembered ordering. I paid half because my name was on the contract and I was tired of arguing with women who had not ruined my life. Beth left Matt for a while. Maybe for good. I do not know. Cole lost members at his gym after the screenshots made their way around. Evan posted something online about false narratives, then deleted it when somebody uploaded part of the reception video. Tyler sent me 6 apologies in 3 weeks. I answered none of them. Darius came by my job once. Rich saw him before I did and met him in the parking lot. I watched from a rooftop as Rich pointed toward the road with a screwdriver in his hand. Darius left without looking up. Mara wrote letters, not texts, actual letters, mailed to the little apartment I rented above a 3-car garage behind a widow's house in Perrysburg. The place smelled like dust and old lumber when I moved in. Slanted ceiling, narrow shower, baseboard heat that clicked all night. I bought a used futon, 1 pan, 2 towels, and a coffee maker with a cracked lid. Her first letter was apology. The second was explanation. The third was anger. The fourth included a memory of the night we painted the front door green. And that one sat unopened on my counter for 4 days because I knew exactly what she was trying to reach. I finally read it after work with my boots still on. She wrote that she had been scared of becoming ordinary, scared of marrying steady and waking up invisible. She wrote that each affair had made her feel chosen by a different version of herself. Darius made her feel reckless. Cole made her feel wanted. Evan made her feel admired. Matt made her feel powerful because he risked more. Tyler made her feel young. Then she wrote that none of it meant she did not love me. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. That was her truth, maybe. It did not have to become mine. Healing did not feel like winning. It felt like learning which grocery store had the cheapest eggs. It felt like going to the gym at 5 in the morning because Cole would not be there and because my body needed somewhere to put anger. It felt like changing my direct deposit to a new account and sleeping 6 hours for the first time in a month. My mother called every Sunday night. At first she cried without letting herself make noise. Then she started telling me normal things. Her neighbor's dog got loose. Paul clogged her sink trying to fix it himself. The maple tree at my old house dropped leaves all over the driveway, and Mara had to rake them alone. Tom called once in December. I almost did not answer. His voice sounded tired. I found the watch in my mailbox. I had wrapped it in brown paper and left it there before dawn. It belongs with your family, I said. He was quiet for a while. You were family for a minute. I'm sorry we made that hurt. We did not talk long. There was nothing to build there, not anymore. But after we hung up, I sat at my little kitchen table and cried in a way I had not cried during any of it. Quiet, ugly, bent forward with both hands over my face while the baseboard heater clicked like an old pipe cooling down. The USB stayed in my toolbox for 2 months. Then one morning in January, before a service call at a school, I took it out. The sky was still black. My truck sat below the apartment stairs, warming up, exhaust rolling white in the cold. The widow's garage light hummed over the gravel. I held the USB in one hand and my wedding ring in the other. The ring had come back from the lawyer in a plastic evidence bag with other personal items. I hated that. Evidence bag. Like our life had become property from a traffic stop. On the shelf above my coffee maker was an empty metal can from Cheap Dark Roast. I dropped the ring in first. It hit the bottom with a small, clean sound. The USB followed. I put the plastic lid on and set the can behind the flour and a box of oatmeal I kept forgetting to eat. Not thrown away, not displayed, just put somewhere I did not have to carry it. Outside, the truck heater had finally started blowing warm. I locked the apartment door, walked down the wooden stairs, and stood for a second in the cold with my bare left hand around the rail. There was no music, no speech, no room turning to watch me, just frost on the windshield, coffee burning my tongue, and another workday waiting. I got in the truck and drove toward it.